Hello, David here. I just had to listen to this guy on Joe Rogan. I have no idea who he is. I've just seen a clip on YouTube. See, let me bring it up here real quick. But I just want to comment on it. Let me play a little bit of it here. Okay, let me set it up. Here we go.
And somehow I don't think they do. I think that they're kind of locked in place. And Nietzsche speaks about that. He calls it eternal recurrence. And it's like eternal recurrence was something that I got quite interested in because it felt true to me.
How so felt true?
Well, he says that what happens is that instead of what I'm allowed to choose from. But so I think it's I also think that there's solipsism. I think I'm a complete solipsist. I think everything around me is some sort of holographic thing that I'm dropped into for the duration of my life, and when I die, it all disappears.
Really?
Yeah, I kind of do think so. I think it's
First of all, in a sense, he's correct on that. Because, God made this universe, and it's not the eternal universe. And I'm not saying this I'm saying this based on my own experiences and supernatural experiences. And what the Bible says also, but not just what the Bible says, but according to the supernatural experiences I've had. Like I had a supernatural experience where time actually slowed down. I was praying, and see, if you really connect to God, the scripture says, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." Now in heaven there's no time. Even people that have near-death experiences go to this place. I've heard comment after comment after comment, and they said there's no time at this place. It's eternal. That means there's no time. There's no dimension of space and time that Albert Einstein talks about. It doesn't exist. Space and time doesn't exist because there's no time. And that's one of the first comments they made. And Albert Einstein discovered that there was a fabric called space and time. So this holographic thing that he's talking about that we live in, yes, it is made up of space and time. So he's correct about that. And he's correct in the fact that it's like a holograph, because the second thing, well, let me talk about the time thing before I move into the holographic, pixelated place we live in that's really made up of atoms. I mean, science proves that it's like a pixelated holographic thing because there's so much space in between our atoms, between the electron and the core of the nucleus, that I mean, it's hardly like we're even here. One of the first guys that discovered that there was so much space in between atoms, his first thought was, well, I might fall through the floor. That was his thought. He actually had a thought like that, the guy that discovered this stuff. So, in a sense, the fabric of that isn't as real as the reality that people experience in heaven. And I'll talk a little bit about that. But first, let me talk about this time thing that I experienced. Like I said, the Bible says, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." Now, when first of all, let me say also another thing. When Jesus talks, he's not a man. People try to relate with Jesus like he's a man. He's not a man. He's a God. And I know that by experience, not by what I've read in the Bible. I know that by experience. I've had him talk to me in an audible voice twice. And it took me, for my intelligence, 40 years before I realized how smart he was. by the times he spoke to me in an audible voice and said some wise things to me. It took me 40 years for my intelligence and my understanding about the mind and how my mind works, why he spoke to me, what he spoke. He already understood me. But it took me 40 years for my intelligence level to get to a point to know why he spoke to me, what he spoke to me, and how deep it was. So the first thing error you're making is that Jesus is not a man. He's a God, and I've also seen him in a vision. I'll talk about the time thing. Let me talk about the vision first. Then we'll go back to the time thing. I've seen him in a vision, and I've only had maybe 3 visions in my entire life. So this, number one, I've never smoked pot, never taken any drugs, never taken mushrooms, I got drunk once just to see why everyone was doing it. I worked in the medical field 20 years. I've studied the mind for 10 years. I think I'm going to write some books that have some breakthroughs about the mind, because I think I understand it pretty well, because I've studied my own mind for 10 years straight. I've observed it and broke it down, and I got a book I'm going to write. And I'm not trying to promote a book here at all, because I haven't wrote it yet, so I can't promote what I haven't read. But there's a core thing that we do, that if you understand that one thing that everyone does, you can override your own mind and be successful. Kind of like, what Joe Rogan talks about. Write your own story. Be your own producer. You're the writer of your own life. But you can't overwrite a new program until you're able to know what you're against. And I'm not going to give the secret of what you're against, but I'll say this much: you're against programming. Some of the greatest men that ever lived, like FDR, one of the presidents that brought our nation out of a Great Depression, he had that understanding. He realized that men are not prisoners of fate, but prisoners of their own mind. Now, what is it that they're a prisoner of in their own mind? What? Programming. And you're talking about programming that you absorbed before you ever had consciousness to learn. You were a little baby, and by the time you were 3 years old, you had downloaded so much information that you were able to speak language, which animals can't really do like us. And that's what separates us between them. They don't have that capacity. It's like a little old computer that they first made to go to NASA made. That's all they have. That's all the program they have. But yet we have a program that can just keep going and going and going, and growing and growing and growing. We're way more intelligent than an animal. Way more intelligent. I'm sure there's some intelligent animals out there, but there's nobody like us. So basically, by the time you're 3 or 4 years old, you've downloaded trillions of bits of information, and your intelligence and awareness becomes at a point where you're able to speak. So what you're against, a lot of people say by the time people are 3 or 4 years old, their personality is already set. You're battling against all that program. That's why people have like OCD. You have these people that because their mother or someone around them had these certain qualities they download into them. Some people end up with these OCD type programs. That's all it is a program. So FDR said men are not prisoners of fate, but prisoners of their own mind. And once there's a core thing in us, and I'm not going to reveal the secret of that because that's what my book's going to be about. There's a core thing in us that constantly is with us and in us and a part of our consciousness. Some people call it the subconscious. That's as much information as I'm going to give. I'm not going to go any more deeper than that. Some people call it the subconscious, but it's not. Only a fool thinks it's a subconscious. Someone that doesn't really understand consciousness. It's not sub. It's dominant. That's all I'm going to say. But that programming is dictating, stopping you from doing what Joe Rogan says, to write your own story, be the producer of your own life. And it's a very powerful program. It's no different than when a virus takes over a computer and you can't use the computer. You're locked out of the computer. The computer slows down. That's very similar to what the mind does. A lot of people are just as intelligent as other people, but their computer's locked down. Like for example, a lot of these intelligent people that are attacking Donald Trump know they're as intelligent as him, but the difference is Trump is successful. Trump has $1 million business. Trump does all these things that they can't do because their programming, even though they have intelligence, they can't overcome their programming. And it's as simple as that. They know they can spell better than him. They know different things, that they're more intelligent, that their memory, there's nothing wrong with their memory, but memory doesn't give you intelligence. Memory, being not locked out of a program, is what makes you successful. Now look at it, and if you don't believe that, well, then look at Mr. Little Ant. Mr. Little Ant has, I forget the percentage of brain cells that Mr. Ant has, but Mr. Ant is homeless. Mr. Ant is fed. We have homeless people that have this huge capacity brain power. They're out on the street, and they can't take care of themselves yet. Little Ant, with hardly any programming, does. Why? Same reason Trump is successful. Trump's not so much more intelligent than other people. Trump just doesn't have that programming blocking him and speaking to him and causing what FDR says: men are not prisoners of fate, but they're prisoners of their own mind. So people, of course, are jealous there's jealousy against Donald Trump. They're pissed because they know they're as intelligent as him, but they can't be as successful as him. And they're pissed about it. But Mr. Ant can do the same damn thing as Trump. Mr. Ant can be as successful as a homeless person on the street. Homeless person has hundreds and hundreds of times more intelligence than an ant. But Mr. Ant is housed. Mr. Ant is fed. Mr. Ant is successful. Mr. Ant is diligent about doing what he needs to do consistently. Anyway, I didn't mean to get in all that. I just wanted to show that I have understanding about the mind. It's really not that complicated once you understand this core thing. There's a core thing in us, and I'm not going to tell what it is, that if you can override it, and I know the secret on how to do it, if you can override that, it's only one thing. If you can override that, you can take control over your life. It's simple. And I was dominated my whole life, totally dominated, totally. I have what you call attention deficit disorder. Talk about not being able to control. Your mind just wandering here and there. It's like not having a steering wheel in a car. You have a powerful engine, but you can't go to the places you want to go because you can't steer, and you can't slow down or brake. It's like having ADD is like not having a steering wheel or a brake, or be able to control how fast the car goes. And that's the problem that we have with our mind. I don't want to get into too many secrets about the mind, but there's this one thing that you can take control of all that. And it'd probably make me millions of dollars when I write my book, if people are not stupid. People are so busy nowadays, but I know I'm right, and I know how to take control over this. And the funny thing about it is it controls everybody. Everybody in the world is controlled by it. Every single human being is dominated and controlled by this one thing. It's kind of hilarious. But Jesus knew all about this. When Jesus spoke to me 40 years ago, he understood. When he spoke to me in an audible voice, he understood all this stuff. And the vision I saw of Jesus, guess what it looked like? It wasn't 30 till it was 30 years later I saw the Shroud of Turin. 30 years later I saw the Shroud of Turin. I think it's called Turin. You gotta understand, I had an ADD all my life, and it was a powerful thing. And really, in the last few years, I've started to get a little bit more. I've got a lot more control. A lot more control. I shouldn't even be making this video, but I got to do it every once in a while. But I saw this vision of Jesus, and 30 years later I saw something about, I didn't have no knowledge about the Shroud of Turin. And when I saw the image of the Shroud of Turin that showed what Jesus looked like, I said, that's the person I saw in the vision. And I knew it was him. And when I saw him in a vision, I'm not stupid, you know. I've never been stupid. I'm highly intelligent, I think. But just because you don't have control doesn't mean you're not intelligent. There's a lot of people that are homeless, highly intelligent, but they have no control. They're just like that car I said, that they can't turn the steering wheel, they can't brake, they speed up and they can't slow down. They have no control over their mind. And I was that way. And even Joe Rogan talks about being that way. Joe Rogan he's aware that he's that way, so somehow Joe Rogan has learned how to steer, brake, and slow down his brain. So, because he resisted video games, he used to be addicted to pool. Now there's a reason one of the reasons Joe Rogan does these things is because there's a reward, just like Dr. Phil talks about. That's one of probably the greatest revelations that Dr. Phil got. But Dr. Phil stole that from Jesus. I'm not stupid. He stole that from Jesus. He's a Christian. Jesus talked about why the Pharisees did what he did. So all Dr. Phil did was look at some brilliant thing that Jesus spoke about, finally understood it, and it made him have some wiseness, some understanding of human nature. So everything that Joe Rogan does, we do it for some sort of reward. There's a reward behind it. It appeals to us. It appeals to. There's possibly some damage in our self-esteem. There's a possibility it makes us feel powerful. Like even the Joe Rogan show. It's called It's the Powerful Joe Rogan Show. What's it called? Yeah, Powerful Joe Rogan Experience. See how people are seeking that power, even in the name of Joe Rogan's podcast in itself. It says, as I'm sitting there looking at it, it says the Powerful JRE, Joe Rogan Experience. Powerful. Because it's power in a sense to have control over your own life. I just lost my video here. There it is. And it's not that there's one person is too much more powerful and intelligent than the other. Sure, there's some people out there that have some good memories, but memory's not necessarily intelligence. Memory, I mean, a computer can have fantastic memory, but it doesn't mean it's intelligent. Anyway, let me kind of move into this. I don't want to make a long video, but I was going to talk about how the vision of Jesus, first of all, he looked like the Shroud of Turin, which I saw the image of his face, what he looked like. Didn't see another image of that. No, nothing that any man ever drew or wrote. Any picture of the name on ever made of Jesus never looked like that I ever saw. The only image that I've ever saw that looked like the vision I saw of Jesus was the Shroud of Turin, which I didn't know about it when I saw Jesus in a vision. Didn't know about it until 30 years later. Then I saw the Shroud of Turin, the image of it, and I said, that's what Jesus looks like. That's the man. So that wasn't the only part of it, seeing what he looked like. I also saw his level of intelligence as I looked on him. I saw a depth that I never saw on any human being. I never saw anyone had that type of intelligence and depth. Just by looking into his eyes, you could see he had tremendous, and you could even read his thoughts by looking into his eyes. You could see what he was thinking by looking into his eyes. You could read his thoughts, and you could sense the depth, not only of love, and I never even read that too much about the Bible, about, all this love and all this stuff of God and all this stuff. But I saw it for myself. I saw this depth of love. I saw this depth of intelligence. I saw this depth that this wasn't a man that I was looking at. Even though he had a man suit, the intelligence level was a God. It wasn't a man. He had an intelligence of a God, not a man. And he had understanding of everything. Everything. Total understanding of everything. So that was the vision I saw. And the Bible also said, no man speaks like this man. And I didn't really know what that meant until after I saw what Jesus looked like in his intelligence level. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about that. And the other thing I want to talk about is the time thing. I was praying about 40 years ago, really connected with God, and time slowed down. And I thought, well, maybe that's just something you feel when you're close to God. But I was praying again, and time powerfully slowed down. But this time, there was my unsaved friend was in the driver's seat driving, and I was in the passenger seat. And as I'm praying, I wanted to connect to God because, to be honest with you, it feels good. It feels, there's something about that atmosphere, that dimension, His Spirit, that you just want to connect to. And you don't want to really disconnect from it after you connect to it. So I was praying and connecting powerfully, very powerfully, and time was slowing down around me. And why wouldn't it? Because He says, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. There's no time in heaven, so as I'm talking to Him, connecting with Him, there's no time with me. Time is slowing down around me. And to be quite honest with you, I learned that revelation God gave me for a reason, to understand Genesis. A lot of silly Christians out there think that man has only been on the earth for 6,000 years as they trace back the generations from Adam. But no, it doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. That was when Adam died 6,000 years ago. He was alive for who knows how long. Hundreds of thousands and thousands of years. Then he died 6,000 years ago. That's when he sinned. Then he began to die, and then died it wasn't quite 1,000 years later, that's when he died. That's when he died. But if you look in Genesis, you'll see God made man and female, and He made him in their image, and He said, be fruitful, multiply. So there was two groups He made. He made one group that were keeping the earth and being fruitful, multiply, which you could almost say is the Gentiles, because the Bible differentiates between the Jews and the Gentiles. And they were separate. There was people keeping the earth, and these people grew into intelligence. They built all these crazy things. And a lot of people believe the pyramids were already there and built by these race of people that lived probably long before the flood and all this other stuff. These civilizations that developed for hundreds of thousands of years, from those people that God said be fruitful and multiply, they were keeping the earth. Because God knew that Adam and Eve, the sons of God, it actually calls them the sons of God, which is almost the same reference as an angel. And angels didn't die. Angels didn't have sex. It wasn't until Adam and Eve sinned that they became like men, and then they started having sex and babies. And then when the Bible says Eve is the mother of all living, remember Jesus said, "Let the dead bury the dead." So the sons of God were really more alive than these others. Now, when the sons of God joined the daughters of men, their DNA merged, and immediately their lifespan was cut down to 120 years. Then what does God do to start reverse the whole process? God takes Abraham, says be separate. He separates them again. Remember, they were separate before. So, and the reason I understand all this stuff, that's when time began for Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve lived in the same as heaven. They were like angels, didn't have children, were connected, just like I connected to God and time slowed down. They were connected to God, and they had not sinned. Once they sinned, then time resumed for them, and then they began to die. I also think there might have been another transformation. I think their body changed, because I think they had a glory around them that clothed them. Like if you see Jesus, a lot of people, like if you want to see a perfect example of someone who saw Jesus, look up an experience from Ian McCormick. He sees Jesus, and Jesus is clothed in this light, this glory that's beaming and glory from his face, and just being, that's his clothing. This glory, this beaming. And if you think that's stupid, then in the Bible you see Moses. See how it all ties together, the New Testament and the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, Moses, when he got up on God and got close to God, he would come back and his face would be glowing because he was close to that glory. And Adam and Eve, I believe, were covered with that glory. That's one that they were disconnected from God. Their glory was gone, and all of a sudden they were naked, because they weren't naked before. They were covered with this glory. So anyway, I don't want to get too much more deeper in all this. But then you see when Jesus, but I'll cover a little bit more. So then you see Abraham, God says be separate, because they were separate before. The sons of God were separated from the daughters of men. So Abraham, first thing God does is he separates Abraham from everyone else. And that's where we got the Jewish nation. So he separates them. And what does he do to start to reverse the process? The first thing that God does when Abraham believes God, he says it was counted as righteousness. How did all sin enter into all mankind? When Eve believes Satan. What is it that they believed? A word. What is Jesus? Jesus is the Word made flesh. Now, if you think that's stupid, that Jesus is the Word made flesh, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and it also says that nothing was made without the Word, science also knows that everything is a bit of information. Science knows that energy can't be created or destroyed, and that everything is a bit of energy information. That's what it is. It's just different types of energy information in the form of atoms. But basically, it's a bit of information. Now, if you think that's, and it says without the Word, nothing was made that was made. So it's giving you a clue about everything, that everything's made by a word or a bit of information. Now, information can be good or information can be bad. We can take information and use it to build a nuclear reactor. But then if that information of that nuclear waste can become a bad thing, it become a good thing, and this fact can produce energy, but the bad thing is, it comes from that same information, is a thing called nuclear waste. And if you don't know how to deal with that waste, well, you're like, well, what are we gonna do with this? We figured out we can get energy and bombs from this nuclear stuff, but
we could only, just like the Titanic, look at the good and what we got. We didn't think it through, you know. we we didn't completely think it through, so we got this. Well, we got this thing called nuclear waste. But we're not really worried about it. We'll just stick it down in some hole somewhere, and even though it lasts 500 years, and it contaminate the whole Earth, and if we have a nuclear accident at Chernobyl or something like that, well, we're not worried about that. We're just looking at the good, and it gives us energy, free energy. Yeah.
So there's good and bad. You understand, you got to know the good and the bad that everything produces. And Joe Rogan's aware of things that produce. Joe Rogan even made a statement, which is very wise, because Jesus made the exact same statement. I don't know if he stole it from Jesus or just figured it out because he's smart. But everybody's always producing something. The Bible even talks about words or seeds or fruit. And people eat that fruit. If your fruit's good enough, you'll make $100 million like Joe Rogan. If your product is good, that's what it's about, making a product that people want that's good. Now, there is some waste from Joe Rogan's podcast. Everything that Joe puts out there is not good. A lot's good, but then there's some nuclear waste to some of the stuff that Joe says. Now, one of the huge the worst thing that nuclear accident that Joe Rogan could possibly do is not believe in God and Jesus and not know about him. But he's never went down that rabbit hole. He's never got born again. Now, when you get born again, you get a sensor. Now, going back to science again, everything in science is about a sensor. This is a sensor created by man's. I can see. I couldn't see far away. Now I can. I build a microscope. Oh, now I can see the small world. Oh, I can build a telescope. Now I can see the stars way out there that I couldn't see before. Oh, now I build a better telescope, a better sensor, and oh, that's not a star, that's a galaxy that has 500 billion stars in it. All because I built a better sensor. The Hadron Collider is a sensor. So when you get born again, all you're getting is a sensor. You're getting a sensor to sense God and that world and that realm, which is really the only real realm. Like this guy's talking about, this is a holographic world. Well, this is the real realm that you're all of a sudden starting to sense. Like Jesus said, let the dead bury the dead. Well, when you get born again, you're born into a new spiritual dimension realm. Now, what does people want this born again experience? And what does Joe Rogan do? Well, takes his little pot and smokes it, tries to tap into that spiritual real world. Tries, but doesn't. It's actually, I believe, tapping into a demonic realm. And these demonic entities just give him the finger because they know they're way more intelligent than him. He's talked about these jesters that all went around him, and they can read his thoughts. They know, they're inside of him. They're permeating with his spirit. They can read his thoughts. Don't you understand that in Genesis, when we believe Satan's word, that was like the USB port of connecting to the spiritual internet of Satan? That he downloaded something in us that he could always have access into our spirit? Now with Jesus, you will not see Satan ever speaking into his spirit. The only person that Jesus could hear on a spiritual realm that was speaking to him was God. That's why he did the miracles he did. He says, I do what I see the Father do. Now he knew when Satan spoke, like when Satan entered into Peter and he spoke, he knew that was Satan, but Satan didn't have access into his thoughts. So we always have this little voice that's in us that we think is us, but it's not. And that's also part of that programming that I talked about earlier. It's a voice. It's a voice that speaks. You know, what is a virus? A virus is a bit of information that speaks to your cells and tells your cell to become like it. Well, what do you think? What do you think that Satan's word is? Satan's word is a bit of information that speaks in you, and then you get transformed into its image. Everything that happens on the earth is based on that. And if this guy in this video says, yeah, things are repeating, yeah, they're repeating because that's Satan's seed, you dumb butt. That's Satan's speaking and being spread from human to human, word to word. Everyone speaks all the time. Jesus said every word that a man speaks will be held accountable in the day of judgment, because that words are either, the Bible says, life or death. That means just like nuclear power, you have nuclear power and you have nuclear waste. Well, words are either good or they're bad. That's how it works. So this guy, if his perception, he thinks that and if you don't think that God made all good DNA, there was a knowledge of good DNA and bad DNA. It was called the knowledge of good and evil. And if you know anything about a fruit, it feeds you and has a seed within itself, and then that seed replicates and you become that seed. A seed is the most powerful thing there is. A seed of thought, for example, when people made a declaration of independence, all that was a thought and a seed that spread throughout the Americas. People agreed with that seed, and it birthed a nation. That's a seed. That's a thought. That's just one seed or thought. One seed or thought entered into a man, and they said that black people were not equal to white people. That was a lie. That seed produced all the lynching, the Civil War. As you look through the span of history, that seed, the destruction. And what does it say in the Bible that Satan's word and seed does? It kills, steals, and destroys. That's his DNA. His DNA steals, kills, and destroys. And that's how it all works. Now, if you want to know about God's DNA, the word God is a 4-letter word, and our DNA has 4 letters. That's God signing off on our DNA. 4 letters. Even the word God itself in Hebrew is not G-O-D. It's not a 3-letter word. It's a 4-letter word. And Jesus, who's the Word, has 4 letters. Word has 4 letters. Word. Jesus, who's the Word, it says in the beginning was the Word. That is 4 letters. Other 4s that you'll see that pop up. God is love. L-O-V-E. God is love. Jesus is the Word, 4 letters. God is love, 4 letters. There's a gift of the Spirit. Gift has 4 letters. Then you have other 4s that pop up. Jesus is the King. King, of course, has 4 letters. There's so many 4s. I need to keep track or write them down, because I got a list of about like 20 of them. Even the closest disciple of Jesus was John, that had 4 letters, who also wrote the 4th gospel. Even Paul, 4 letters. Cross has 4 points. There's some other good examples of 4s, but the big thing is God made all DNA that created life, and it has 4 letters. And how these 4 letters are arranged create everything. Remember, it says in the Bible, without the Word, nothing was made that was made. The Word, without the Word. So one clue we have is that everything is made by a word or a seed. Oh, there's another one, seed. Seed has 4 letters. Now, the bread of life that came down, called manna, when the children of Israel picked that up, it looked like a little seed, a little wafer seed. And then they ate that bread. And then Jesus says about his seed, he said, a sower went forth to sow a seed. And then Jesus says about that seed, he says, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word of God. So a lot of people live by the word of Satan. The mafia, for example, they live by a word. They live by a word. They get a reward, like Dr. Phil talks about, from a word. A certain thing gives a certain reward and produces a certain thing. One of the reasons they do the things they do, just like a lot of gangs that you have, these gangs, is for respect. They love respect. Why does someone love disrespect? To be quite honest with you, is because they don't really respect their self, or their parents didn't respect them, and they have to have that reward, that food, and they have to have it in rich, thick levels, like in the mafia. Like someone, like in the mafia, if you don't show respect toward someone that's a boss above you, he might kill you. So you give that person that respect. You treat them like a king, or they'll kill you. Same thing with some of these gangs. They want that respect, but that shows you that they're over thirsty for something because of their sick self-esteem. If they really respected and really had a foundation of respect built in their own self, they wouldn't crave that. But that's where they get their respect, and it's a fucked up way to do it, just to be honest. And of course it is, because it's Satan's little trick trap shit. That's what they do. And you can tell I'm not an ordinary Christian. I just said fuck, and I just said shit. My mind just saw that both those words are four-letter words. Wonderful. I'm sure Satan has created some four-letter words and try to smear God. That's probably where four-letter words came from. Because that's what Satan does, to be honest. Satan does those type of things. That's not an accident that those four-letter words, fuck and shit and all these other things, these four-letter words, it's not an accident, because Satan does everything by design. Satan is highly intelligent. Even Kennedy knew about this. Kennedy, things don't happen, things are made to happen. There's nothing that happens by accident in the satanic world or the God word, in the God world. Everyone is planning and creating a story for everyone's life. And each one wants them to live out their story. Satan wants you to live out the story that he has written for you. He literally has written a plan and a story for your life. That's an absolute fact. Just like Hitler strategized to try to win the war, Satan and his demons strategize on how to trap your ass up. And that's an absolute fact. If you don't believe that, well, you're going to get caught. And some of the people that become successful are actually people that figure out good paths. Like Joe Rogan, the reason he's making all the money he's making is because he has found the right way. Jesus is the way, and Jesus and Joe has found some truths. And anytime you find truth, it's going to bless you. It is going to bless you if you find a truth. And Joe has found plenty of truths, and he's been blessed by those truths. You know, he treats people right. He treats people with respect. I've watched him on some of the podcasts with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he, at some point, I think within him, he'd like to say to him, "Would you shut up and let me talk?" Because the way Neil has to have the reward. He has to, because of his low self-esteem, and yes, he has low self-esteem. Neil is just like the white man that believed he was superior to the black man. Neil, because of his foundation of intelligence, he has to believe that he's more intelligent than Joe on every single topic. That's a fact. Anybody that has half a brain can see that. Because he has that belief system that he's more intelligent than Joe Rogan. No different than the white man that believed he was superior to the black man, but he found out that that wasn't true. But because Neil deGrasse Tyson believes a lie, and he's actually, that lie he believes gives him a reward. That's the trap of it, a satanic trap. There's always a satanic trap to everything that Satan puts out there. It's a lie. Satan created the first lie. So there's a satanic trap that Neil deGrasse Tyson does. He has a foundation. He built his house, his foundation, on a lie that he believes he is more intelligent than Joe Rogan in every way. And anytime Joe is able to speak something to prove that he has intelligence that maybe Neil doesn't have, Neil has to trumpet, because he doesn't want to ever believe that he has to believe that he's superior to Joe. But that's a lie that he believes. And that's in the reward. He has a reward, and he has to have that reward, just like the scribes and Pharisees had to have their reward. And they murdered Jesus to have it. Neil doesn't let Joe talk. He degrades him. He talks down to him. And he does that because he believes a lie. And it doesn't mean that he's not intelligent. It just means that there's too much knowledge out here. He cannot know everything. No one has time to do that. And to be quite honest, Joe is a more well-rounded individual than Neil deGrasse Tyson. I'm not saying that Neil deGrasse Tyson isn't intelligent, but just on an emotional level, Joe's superior to him, because Joe can sit there and hold back and let him talk. And let him have that platform and let him feel like he is more intelligent than Joe. And he is more intelligent and knowledgeable about stuff than Joe. But then who has more money? If you want to look at who's actually more successful and intelligent, excuse me, who has more money? Proof is in the pudding, not in what you say. Well, that's kind of a, I mean, I'm just a straight up type person, and that's just the way it is. I tell it as it is. And maybe that's not a good thing. People aren't going to like you for that. But it is what it is. It's time that as a human race that if we don't have a foundation of honesty and truth, well, we're going to build our foundation on lies. And if we build our foundation on lies, you're going to treat people bad, just like the way Neil deGrasse Tyson treats Joe Rogan. But Joe's mature enough that he can be treated that way by Neil deGrasse Tyson, and it doesn't hurt his self-esteem. So it's not really hurting Joe, because he's secure within his own self. He's not like these mafia people that are so thirsty for respect that they'll kill you for it. So anyway, I kind of got off topic here. I got really off topic. But anyway, let's play a little bit more of the video. I don't have too much more time to spend here. Hope this don't crash on me. My laptop's about to die. It's been crashing, so let's try to switch without this crashing. Play a little bit more of this video.
I also think that there's everything that is going to happen has already happened, and there's a paradox where free will also exists. So I think I have the ability to go around and act with free will. I don't think that things are completely deterministic. But I think the free will is informed by the biological programming we were talking about before. But I'm still choosing within a given set of what I'm allowed to choose from. But the paradox is also that I think that I'm probably on my deathbed if you collapse time down and look at it as like a linear, thing.
What he's saying right there about he's already on his deathbed. Well, yeah, because time is so short for all of us. We're here for just a blink. I mean, I was just in high school. I'm 60. I'll be 63 in October, and I was just in high school. I mean, I was just in high school. I don't even think of myself as being old. I haven't even grown up. Of course, I have ADD, and I daydreamed a lot in the daydream matrix that ADD people live in. But I've started to break free from that, and now I want to live some. And but I was in that daydream matrix my whole life. But that's what people with ADD do. That's where they spend their mind. That's why their mind can't focus, because their mind is actually focused on their daydreams, and they can't break free from them. And it sounds stupid, but it's the truth. And I don't want to get into all that. But he's saying that everything that's already happened has happened before. No, what's happening is the repeating seed of Satan. Satan has a book written for everyone's life. God has a book written for everyone's life. And a lot of the things that do happen are things that God wants to produce on this earth, or what Satan wants to produce on this earth. You see people killing all the time, you know, people hating, people getting pissed because someone didn't give them respect, then people backstabbing them or stabbing them in the chest. Yeah, all that stuff is repeating because it's the same behavior that Satan wants to spread on the earth. And then some people let themselves be sacrificed like Jesus. Some people let people do evil to them, and kind of like Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King, you know, resisted the evil. He didn't repeat that pattern, even though it drove him nuts at times. He had to fight against it to not let it overcome him, the evil. And evil is very contagious. It's a very contagious seed. It's very similar to a virus. Like different viruses are more contagious than others. Well, certain seeds of thought and word are very contagious. Very contagious. You can spread those things so easy. And some people call it brainwashing, but it's the part of our brain that is willing to receive a certain seed. I mean, just to give an example, in World War II, the Germans were defeated in World War I. So if someone like a Hitler would have rose up, let's say, like if the self-esteem of the German people weren't so busted and broke down, they wouldn't have believed the lies that or Hitler planted. They wouldn't have took to them. They wouldn't have leaned toward them and accepted them and became part of the fabric of Germany. And not everybody accepted the things that Hitler was doing. But because their self-esteem was broke down and they were thirsty for the words that Hitler was saying, that they were the superior race and that they should lead the world, and yada, 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 they fed into that. And just like Satan that created the first lie, Hitler, self-esteem was tore down by some Jews. He wanted to become an artist. And I tell you what, a dream that a person has, I wanted to be a tennis pro. And when somebody guns down your dream, that's so important to you. It's so important to you. And when somebody just guns it down, you know, it does something to you, because you can't live out your dreams. You can't even attempt to live it out. And they just gunned down his dream. He wanted to be an artist. That's what his heart loved. That's how he got his self-esteem and his reward and his purpose. And when they took that from him in such a cold, disrespectful way, it planted a seed in him. And that's kind of where some of the rhetoric of wanting the German to become the superior race came from. He wanted to basically overcome their thoughts of them acting like they were so superior. He wanted to prove that he was superior, that his taste in art was better. He went around and robbed all the art places. That's where they came from. And then the German people were ripe for that type of rhetoric. And that's why an entire world war happened from that seed of what the Jews planted in him. It was Jews that did that, if I know my history correct. That was a seed they planted. And from, I've planted some seeds in my lifetime where I've reaped some hell too. About 3 years ago, I planted a seed in some girl. You plant a seed in the wrong person, they will come at you like a Hitler, like a little Hitler, and they will seek power, and they will come back and destroy you. And that's what this girl did to me. Oh, she got me in so much trouble because she lied. I mean, I went through some hell. It was one of the most evil thing anyone's ever done to me in my whole life. It almost killed me, to be honest. I almost had a heart attack because my heart was in a bad shape at the time, and she almost murdered me. It was a black girl and a black boss. Which race has nothing to do with behavior. Let's clarify that right now. Anybody that thinks that your skin color, your melatonin, has anything to do with behavior is a complete idiot. The only thing it has to do with behavior is certain groups associate with other groups based on color. Certain groups of people associate with certain groups based on color alone. And certain groups, like white people, disassociate with certain groups based on color. They disassociated with a lot of black people based on color. Now, I can understand someone disassociating with someone based on their culture. Because there's some cultures out there. I'll just mention one. There's some hillbilly culture. And I'm not saying all hillbillies, but some hillbillies that I've dealt with. They are very selfish, disrespectful people. And I'm not saying all hillbillies are that way. But I bumped into a few, and I don't know if they're all like that. But it's a culture. It has nothing to do with being white. Because you can be black or white. You can be a good hillbillies. But there's a certain group of them that I've dealt with, and they're very cold. They're very selfish. And they're very disrespectful. And that has to do with culture, and that has nothing to do with skin color. Culture, your culture, like, just to give an example, there was this guy named Jeff, the black guy that grew up in my neighborhood. Now, he grew up in my neighborhood, in my culture, and yes, it was a society of white people, which has nothing to do with culture. Culture is culture. That's a mental DNA of how you think about things, and that has nothing to do with skin color. It can be spread from one culture to another, the way people think about things. That has nothing to do, nobody owns any thoughts. This culture appropriation horse shit, nobody owns a thought. Not unless it's a copywritten thought or song, or thoughts are free. Just like freedom of speech is supposed to be free. People are supposed to be free to express their thoughts, but not in this day and time, because Twitter and even YouTube, potentially. YouTube's probably not as bad, but Facebook, you can't express your thoughts. That's what America's about. Expressing your thoughts and letting the people decide. Having free speech and letting people decide whether it's right or wrong. But nowadays, there's no free speech. But, yeah, Jeff grew up in my neighborhood, and Jeff had the same temperament as everybody in the neighborhood. Jeff was Jeff. He was neither black or white, he was just Jeff. And that's how it is. Melatonin does not create behavior. I say melatonin doesn't create behavior. It has nothing to do with behavior, other than maybe if you're able to be out in the sun and get some vitamin D. You have the right skin color for that. Even black people don't get good vitamin D because they block a lot of the vitamin D. But that has nothing to do with skin color. Your skin color you should not. Now I can see someone rejecting someone based on the culture, because culture is a DNA is a DNA way of thinking about things, which can include racism. I've had lots of racism from black people because right away they see my skin color and they assume I'm not part of their team. They'll go up and shake another person's hand that's black, and they'll know that person never met him. They'll say, "Hey, brother," and they'll shake their hand because they're black. But me, I'm the white guy, and until they actually get to know me, they might not like me after they get me out, because I'm not saying I'm a likable person, because I'll tell it straight as it is. And most people don't like that, including white or black. I'm not going to cut any corners. I'm going to give it to them straight. And I'm not very nice about it sometimes. I don't even put any sugar on it. That's something I got to work on. But anybody that thinks that skin color has anything to do with behavior is so stupid, it's unreal. And I'll throw that straight out there. You are so stupid to like people based on skin color. Now, if you don't like them based on their culture, I can understand that, because culture is about ideas and thoughts and belief systems. That's what culture is. It's about an ideology. About there's certain cultures I don't like on the way they do things. I mean, and that includes rich people, that includes bosses. Police officers have a certain culture on what they believe. Like one of the things I don't believe in, I just drove by an area that I thought they removed all these damn things. But they have these electronic, unmerciful electronic cameras that you might have been driving 35 miles an hour in the speed limit all day long, and then all of a sudden you sped up to pass somebody, and you went maybe 42, 43 mile an hour and passed somebody. And then all of a sudden, one of these, you didn't know that it was there, one of these electronic things snap, and it takes a picture and it sends you a ticket in the mail. I'm expecting, I didn't know they had these still in Dayton, where I live, and I'm waiting to see if I got a ticket in the mail from one of these bastard things, because they're unmerciful. They don't take in consideration that you drove 35 mile an hour all day long, you try to obey the speed limit, and then all of a sudden you make one little error, and it's waiting there pouncing, ready to give you a big $100 ticket. And that's a culture, that's a belief system. They think that's okay, but it's unmerciful. But a lot of cops are unmerciful. If they catch you, there's some cops that just want to make money on tickets. They actually get rewarded by their bosses, but they try to label it and say, "Oh, you're keeping people safe when you give tickets." No, you can keep people safe by pulling them over and give them a warning. So any ticket that you get from the camera should be a warning. And then if you happen to get pulled over and they look and see that you have that warning, well, then you should get a ticket. If you've got one or two of these warnings from these camera things, then when they pull you over, then maybe they should give you a ticket. But if your record's clean, these bastard cops out there will give you a ticket, and no matter how perfect you drove. And everyone rushes to work every once in a while. Everyone's late to work every once in a while, and I pretty well keep at the speed limit. Even if I'm late for work, I'll go 5 over the speed limit, but that's about it. But anyway, we're talking about skin color here and culture. I can understand somebody not liking somebody because of the way that their culture, because culture is about believing in an ideology, a belief system about some word. Like Jesus says, words are either life or death. There's words that are either life or death. And every human being alive, whether they're black, white, or whatever they are, has belief systems, and those belief systems are either good or evil. That's how life works. And evil belief systems always kill, steal, and destroy things. You know, like they have like jobs. Some jobs say, well, you can't build up your vacation time. If you don't use it in that time period, in that year, you'll lose it. That's a belief system that steals. See how a belief system can kill, steal, or destroy? Well, that belief system, you can't carry your vacation time to the next year or you'll lose it. See how that belief system steals? It steals your vacation time. You have to use it or you lose it. That's a belief system that they made for whatever reason. They're afraid of people taking too much vacation time or something in a year and not being at work, and they can't cover that employee because that employee's missing for too long of a period of time because they carried over their vacation, took a big fat vacation. That's what that's really about. That's what created that belief system, is what created that belief system that caused them to want to steal your vacation time. But so they're only thinking of their own self. So anyway, I kind of got off topic here and just talked about this and that, but I'm out of time. I didn't have time to do this, but I mean, but I don't. This belief system this guy has about things he's talking about, I don't think he has any real experience. I don't think he's been born again. I don't think he has a sensor like me. So he even quotes other people's belief systems in which he adopted, and they never proved that their belief systems was right. So he's not even come to his own conclusions. He adopted somebody else's belief system, some guy that he thought highly of and thought was intelligent, adopted their belief systems, and it became his. And that's where he's quoting a lot of this stuff he's quoting. Well, I don't adopt anybody's belief system. I only go by what God teaches me, and God will show you things. You don't have to take a bunch of drugs to try to explore a spiritual world. And that spiritual world that you're exploring when you take drugs isn't, if you're not born again, doesn't mean you're going to explore the right realm, because there's two different realms out there. There's two different unique spiritual worlds. One's spiritual world of God, the other ain't. And the other's deceptive, just like Satan was deceptive in the Garden of Eden and deceived Eve. Well, you take those drugs and you get in those realms, they'll blow you away with their intelligence, because they are way more intelligent than you. They've been around forever, and they've seen everybody and everything. These entities, they are highly intelligent, on a spectrum of intelligence that goes so far over years that you will be impressed with them. But that doesn't mean that you should believe everything you say when you enter into their realm. And yes, you are entering into their realm because they are in that realm. And they know you desire spiritual things, just like, you know, that spiritual connection. We desire that. Now, what caused Eve to connect with Satan? I mean, he actually created that void and made her feel insecure. He made her feel inferior and insecure, and that's why she reached for what she did to fulfill that. But he created that, though, through words. Brainwashed her. And if she would have held to the word that she believed, that of what God had, God might have rewarded her with the knowledge of good and evil. Because I've noticed God does that sometimes. God will actually give you the very thing you wanted. Like the children of Israel wanted kings over them. And God actually gave it to them. Now it was their downfall. They went for a horrible downfall in the Bible. But he gave it to them. He gave them what they wanted. But I don't want to get into too much more stuff. That's all I got time for. So I'm going to jump off here.